करना थी 5 मिनट
ठीक है,
मैं ऑन कर देता
कर दो।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah wa ala Ahl-e-Baitika al-Madlumin. Sallallahu alayka ya Sayyidi ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما كان المؤمنون لينفروا كافة فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We have respected doctors in the community. We absolutely appreciate what they do. We can't live without doctors. And we know the process of how their job works. Obviously, they graduate from college, they take the MCATs, they go to medical school, they do their residency, they get their license. We know how a doctor arrives to a conclusion. He receives a patient. The patient is suffering from some sort of pain. Some sort of pain, maybe pain in his chest. The doctor performs an examination. He looks for signs and symptoms. In the beginning, he might have an idea of what the patient is suffering from. If he's not very sure, he will ask for tests, maybe an MRI, maybe a CT scan. He might ask for an X-ray, and then he will, with the help of these tests, MRIs, CT scan, he rules out the different possibilities, and usually there is one possibility left. And based on that possibility, there's only one strong possibility left for the illness in this patient. He comes to a conclusion that this patient is diagnosed with, for example, cardiac arrest, or he suffers from a stroke, or he had a heart attack, or what have you, and he prescribes a medication. This is basically a process that a doctor goes through in order to analyze and understand what a patient is going through, and he reaches a conclusion. Pharmaceutical companies also arrive to conclusions. Pharmaceutical companies deal with medicine. They try to see what medicine is good for which illness. So for example, they start out with a hypothesis that this medicine helps solve Alzheimer's, for example, if there's a solution to Alzheimer's. Then they begin a process of trial and error. So they give this medicine, they try out this medicine. If this doesn't work, another medicine, another medicine. They're coming up with a solution to Alzheimer's. There's a process of trial and error. They're not going to arrive at the solution to Alzheimer's from the first try. There has to be several trials. And they need subjects. Maybe they use animals for trial, mice, rat. Or they have paid volunteers. They volunteer to take this medicine to see, does it help for Alzheimer's or it doesn't? Or maybe they inform their patients that we are trying this medicine on you to see if it works or it doesn't work. Until they arrive at a conclusion after they've submitted this medicine to several number of patients. They either conclude that this medicine works for Alzheimer's or it doesn't work. This is the process that a pharmaceutical company goes through. We can say the same thing about engineers, lawyers, other professions. But how does a mujtahid arrive to his fiqh conclusion? This is something that most people don't know. A lot of people in their homes, they have a copy of Tawdih al-Masail or Minhaj al-Salihin or any other book that contains the rulings of their marja in Arabic, Urdu, English, whatever language that they follow. The book of rulings, it's a book of conclusions. This is halal, this is haram. This is wajib, this is makruh, this is mustahab. You're only reading the conclusions. Or you search for your marja''s fatwa online, you don't get an explanation of the ruling. You only get a conclusion. Because imagine if a marja' wanted to justify his fatwa to every single follower of his, it would have to write an entire compendium. So he simply gives you the conclusion. He gives you the conclusion that he arrived at. But how did he reach that conclusion? Most people don't know. Unless you've studied in the hawza. Unless you practice that process. Unless you've seen that process with your own eyes, then you're able to say that he reached this conclusion through this process. Tonight, my dear brothers and sisters, we don't want to talk about how a mujtahid reaches the stage of ijtihad. That's for another lecture. We want to discuss something very specific. When a mujtahid faces a problem, faces an issue, faces a question, you sitting here in Somerset, you ask your marja' a question online. For example, what is the ruling on gelatin? What is your ruling on moon sighting? If the moon is sighted, for example, in Maryland, in Virginia, is it enough for us or is it not enough? And you receive a fatwa. When the marja' receives this issue and he writes the fatwa, how does he go about arriving at that fatwa? What are the steps that he takes? The doctor takes examinations, tests, MRIs, CT scans, he rules out possibilities, he arrives at a conclusion. What about a marja'? Are there also various possibilities? What is that process that he takes to arrive at a fatwa? And is this process complicated or simple? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala You see, my dear friends, it's just like becoming a doctor. Ijtihad, issuing a fatwa, is just like when a doctor issues a medical conclusion. It is difficult to become a doctor, but once you're a doctor, seeing patients and writing the prescriptions becomes what? Becomes easy. With practice. The more you practice, You've built up a lot of experience, medical experience. Now that you receive a patient, you can easily diagnose. This person has cancer, la samahullah. This person has had a heart attack. This person had a stroke. It becomes easy. A mujtahid is the same. Becoming a mujtahid is difficult. The process is not easy. It takes years of study, years of memorization, years of analysis, years of practice. But now that he's a mujtahid, coming to conclusions, arriving at a fatwa becomes what? Easy. The more he practices, the more it becomes easy. Becoming a mujtahid is difficult, but the process of ijtihad is not very difficult. It also depends on the issue. There are some issues, there are some problems that require a lot of investigation. They require a lot of research. Sometimes it is research from outside of Hawza. Let me give you an example. Sometimes a mujtahid is discussing medical laws. Medical laws in Islam. It's easy to go to the Quran and Hadith and try to find piece of evidence and proof. But sometimes understanding the medical case is difficult. Is everyone with me? Send a loud salawat. For example, IVF. This has become very common, in vitro fertilization. When a couple cannot have children, either the problem is with the husband, with the father, he needs a sperm donor, or the problem is with the mother, they need a surrogate mother. In order for a mujtahid to pass judgment and to give a fatwa, first he has to understand how the process works. You would need a doctor, a physician to explain to him how the process works, either through asking a doctor or researching, investigating. Once he understands the medical process, he's able to issue a fatwa. That becomes easy. Another issue, Bitcoin. These new currencies. A lot of people ask, what is the ruling of the marja? Is it halal? Is it haram? Can we buy Bitcoin? Can we invest? For a mujtahid to tell you, is it halal or is it haram, he first has to understand what it is. What is it? What is Bitcoin? What is this currency? Is it a real currency? Is it a fake currency? Does it really exist, or is it just online? Is it a number? Does it have monetary value? Does it not have a monetary value? Is it like gambling? You're gambling with your money. Does the price go up? Does it come down? First, you have to understand what it is, and then you can issue a fatwa. That process can sometimes be difficult. Understanding the mawdu', the subject matter, can be a bit difficult. Other issues can be very straightforward. Other issues can be very straightforward. For example, what is a mufattar in the month of Ramadan? What constitutes as a breaking fast? What doesn't constitute as a breaking fast? That's very straightforward. You go to the narrations and you see, does it break your fast or does it not break your fast? Lying upon Allah and His Messenger and the Ahl-e-Bait. Does this constitute a mufattar? Do you break your fast or you don't break your fast? That's very straightforward. You go to the narrations and you find out. It also depends on the nature of the problem. Sometimes there's a lot of narrations. For example, on the topic of Maghrib, Fajr is not an issue, Dhuhr is not an issue, Asr, Isha is not an issue. Maghrib, to know what time is Maghrib, we have over 40 narrations on Maghrib. Is Maghrib with sunrise or is it 12 minutes after sunrise? There's a lot of different narrations. Some of these narrations are conflicting. Some of these narrations are conflicting. Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sa'id al-Hakim, rahmatullahi alayhi, his view was that Maghrib is at sunset, not 12 minutes after sunset. Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani says that Maghrib is 12 minutes after sunset. He doesn't say 12, he says Dhahab al-Humratil Mashriqiyya, when the redness on the eastern sky has disappeared. Why this difference of opinion? Because there's a difference in the narrations, in the hadith of Ahl-e-Bait. There are brothers coming in and they're struggling and finding a place. I ask the dear brothers to pull forward as much as possible. 3 loud salawat.
Allah.
Forward, brothers. Brothers, move forward.
उधर बैठ गए
Some matters, my dear friends, are very clear-cut. They're very simple. Let me give you an example. Is a doctor reliable? Is a doctor held responsible if he makes a mistake? For example, if he injures his patient, or he gives him the wrong medicine, or under surgery, the person dies, or he loses a limb. Is he responsible? Does he have to pay diya, blood money? Here in America, there's insurance. You have to be paying insurance. But in an Islamic country, or let's say insurance did not exist, are you as a doctor responsible for the care of your patient if you performed a mistake? Or you didn't perform a mistake. You performed a surgery very fine, but the person dies. Are you responsible? Here there's a hadith, very clear cut. The hadith, موثقة السكوني. من تطبب أو تبيطر فليأخذ البراءة من وليه وإلا فهو له ضامن. The hadith says, whoever practices medicine or veterinary medicine should obtain a release from liability. Let him sign. Let him get a signature. That in case that I die, or my child dies, or my pet dies, you are not responsible. Let him get a signature. The Imam was telling us this 14 centuries ago. That if you don't get a signature, you're liable, you're responsible. Obtain a release from liability from the patient's guardian or owner. Otherwise, they are liable for any harm. The hadith is very clear. It doesn't require a lot of understanding. The hadith is in Arabic, and it's very clear that a doctor is liable unless he gets a signature that tells him he is not liable. Now, my dear friends, let us dissect the process of deriving an Islamic law step by step. I'd like to take you on a journey, inshallah. I will try not to be very technical. I will try to simplify this as much as possible to let my dear listeners know that when a mujtahid faces an issue, what is the first thing that he does? The first step, second step, third step, fourth step, until he arrives at a conclusion. It's a beautiful journey. It opens our minds. It shows us what a mujtahid has to go through, his understanding, his vast knowledge, and it's also a very beautiful process as well in looking at the narrations of Ahl-e-Bait, the ulum of Ali Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Step number 1. When a mujtahid faces any issue, any problem, any mas'ala, first, he looks for what the aql says. Number 1, reason. Reason. Does reason have a role here? Does reason have a saying here? If it doesn't have a saying, he skips step number 1. Have you seen some applications? It says, if yes, answer the following questions. If no, skip to the second question. The scholar first asks, does aql play a role here? If it does, we stop for a minute. If it doesn't, skip to step number 2. There are some mas'alas where aql plays a role. Let me give you an example. Is it wajib upon you to save a human life? Is it wajib? The Quran says he who saves a human life has saved the entire humanity, but it doesn't say it's wajib. It doesn't say it's haram to take a human life, but it doesn't say it's wajib to save a human life. It says if you do, good for you, but it doesn't say it's wajib. But who says it's wajib? Aql. Aql says that it is wajib if you are capable of saving a human life, any human life, lest he's a muharib, lest he's someone that wants to kill you, or someone that deserves to die. That's for another matter. Who deserves to die? That's another matter. But if it's someone innocent, even from Ahl-e-Kitab, Christian, Jewish, Ahl-e-Kitab, they're not in war with you. They're not at war with you. You have the ability to save their lives, you have to save their life. Whether you're a doctor, or you see an accident on the freeway and you're able to help them out of their car, save their life, here you don't need a hadith or a verse from the Holy Quran. Here, aql says save a human life. You have to save a human life. If you are capable of, you save that human life. So here we find that aql has a position. Aql says save that human life. The second step a mujtahid has to take is that he has to come to the Quran to see, is there anything in the Quran that contradicts with aql or not? Because if there's a contradiction, we take whom? We take the Quran. If there's no contradiction, we go to the second step. Is there any hadith that contradicts this aqli ruling? This ruling by the aql? If there's no contradiction, not from the Quran and not from hadith, we issue a fatwa. A mujtahid issues a fatwa based on what? Based on aql, based on reasoning, that the saving of a human life is wajib. And this was the opinion of Sayyid Al-Khoi rahmatullah alayh. Sayyid Al-Khoi believed that we don't have any proof to save a human life except aql. Aql. Our aql tells us, reason tells us, that if you see a human life suffering and you are able to save that life, you must do so based on aql. This is the first step. The second step, let's say we did not find anything on aql. Aql is silent on this subject. Aql is silent on this subject. We move to what? The Holy Quran. We see what does the Holy Quran say on this subject. If there is a verse very clear, not ambiguous, clear on the Holy Quran, we stop for a minute. If the Quran does not discuss this subject, we skip to step number 3. If the Quran discusses the subject, we examine the verse. Is it clear? Is it ambiguous? Is there a hadith that specifies this verse? Because sometimes we have verses that are general, but there's a hadith that what? Specifies it, translates it, explains it to us. We can't take the verse if there's a hadith that specifies the verse. What do I mean by specify? The verse that we talked about a couple of nights ago. Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. The people, the food of the people of the book is halal for you. Well, this is very general. The food of the people of the book. Well, this includes lamb, beef, chicken, fish. But hadith tells us that food here means what? Wheat, barley, the grains, and hubub. Wheat, barley. It's things like this. Hence we cannot rely on this verse, because there's a hadith that specifies. Sometimes no, there's no hadith that specifies. The verse is general. We may rely on the verse. Let me give you an example. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Today, there are some contracts that exist that previously did not exist. Like what? For example, previously buying and selling existed. Today it exists. Renting existed at the time of Rasulullah. Today it also exists. But today there are certain transactions, there are certain contracts that didn't exist previously. Like what? Insurance. Insurance companies. Today, you go to a company and you pay them a monthly amount for insurance on your life, on your car, on your health. Insurance companies. This is a contract between you and an insurance company. I pay you, for example, $500 a month, but you insure my life, my house, my car, Is this valid? Is this valid? Well, what if you don't end up going to a hospital for the next 5 years, but you're paying them? What if nothing happens to your car for the next 10 years, but you're paying an insurance company? Is this contract valid or not valid? Here we find a verse in the Holy Quran that says, "Awfu bil uqud." Uphold your contracts. Honor your contracts and agreements. And you have an agreement with an insurance company. There's an agreement. There's a signed agreement. You signed, they signed, that in return for paying them, for example, $500 a month, they insure your house, your health, your life. Khalas, this is a contract. Awfu bil uqud. Uphold this contract. Uphold this agreement. Right? This is step number 2. First, step number 1 was that we see what does aql say. Step number 2 is that we see what does the Quran say. If there's a verse, if there's a hadith that specifies the verse, we take the hadith. Otherwise, if there's no specification and the verse is very clear, there's no argument, there's no debate on the meaning of the verse, we rely on the verse and we issue a fatwa based on this verse. Step number 3. Now let's say that the mujtahid did not find anything in aql and reason and did not find anything in the Holy Quran. Where does he go now? Now he looks for qawa'id fiqhiyya, jurisprudential laws, jurisprudential principles. When aql has nothing to say and the Quran has not covered the subject, here a mujtahid has to find a general hadith known as qa'ida fiqhiyya. Qa'ida fiqhiyya, a general hadith. For example, we have qa'ida fiqhiyya like there is no harm in Islam. La darara wa la darara in Islam. This is a qa'ida fiqhiyya. For example, I'm just giving you examples. Do not take them as a fatwa from me. This is just an example for academic sake. Let's say the holy month of Ramadan comes in and someone is diabetic, or someone suffers from colon illness, or a lady is pregnant and she fears that fasting will harm her or her baby. This person who's diabetic, he's afraid that fasting will harm him. He asks a mujtahid, what should I do? A mujtahid sees that there is a jurisprudential law. La darara wa la darara fil Islam. There is no harm in Islam. He will tell him, don't fast this year. You may fast next year. And you may perform qada. Later in the year, you may make up that fasting. Once we find a jurisprudential law, we have to find, has it been specified or not? Meaning what? Is there a specific hadith that conflicts with this qa'ida fiqhiyya or it doesn't? If there's a conflict, we take the specific hadith. If not, we may rely on this jurisprudential principle. Let me give you an example. There's a hadith that says, لا تصلي إلا خلف من تثق بدينه. Don't pray behind anyone unless you are sure of his faith. I have a 14-year-old son. I have a 13-year-old son. And he's religious. He's faithful. And I saw him praying. May I stand behind him and pray? He's not baligh yet. He's 13 years old, for example. He's not baligh yet, but he's religious. And the hadith says, do not pray anyone lest you are sure of his faith. Well, I am sure of my son's faith. May I pray behind him? Based on this jurisprudential principle, yes. But there's a specific hadith that says do not pray behind anyone that has not reached the stage of bulugh. Hence, I cannot rely on this qa'ida fiqhiyya. I have to go and take the specific hadith that do not pray behind anyone who has not reached the stage of bulugh. Yes, if the others are not baligh, they may pray behind him. Other kids of his age or below, they may pray behind him, but not for a grown man. A grown man has to pray behind someone who is baligh. This is the 3rd stage. The 4th stage, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Here, a mujtahid did not find anything in aql. Reason has nothing to say about this. Quran has nothing to say about this, has not covered the subject matter. Nor is there a jurisprudential principle, qa'ida fiqhiyya. Here we go to what? Hadith. We go to specific ahadith. We pick up the book Al-Kafi, Al-Tahdib, Al-Istibsar, Man la yahdurhu al-faqih. Any of these 4 sources of hadith, and we try to look for our issue, our problem in these books. Has hadith addressed this issue or has not addressed this issue? Let me give you an example. Because whenever I have to give an example so that it becomes clear. Let's say that one of our Sunni brothers and sisters converts to Shi'ism, becomes a Shi'i Imami. Someone heard my lecture on Shi'i beliefs and Bukhari and Muslim and decides to convert to Shi'ism. We tell him, you're welcome to Shi'ism. The first thing he will ask is, do I have to redo my salah and fasting and hajj and all of my a'mal? Do I have to redo or I don't have to redo? What is the answer? No. But what is the proof? What is the proof and evidence for this? Here there's a hadith. صحيحة بن أذينة كتب إلي أبو عبد الله Imam al-Sadiq wrote to Umar ibn Udayna أن كل عمل عمله الناصب في حال ضلاله أو حال نصبه ثم من الله عليه وعرفه هذا الأمر فإنه يؤجر عليه ويكتب له. If a Nasibi, imagine if a Nasibi converts to Shi'ism, let alone someone who's not a Nasibi. Imam Sadiq tells him that if a Nasibi opens his eyes and converts to this school of thought, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward him, and he needs not repeat any of his a'mal except one. What is that? There's one. If you can tell me, I'll give you a prize after the lecture. What is that? Who said that? Zakat. Ahsant. Ahsant. Now I have to think of the prize because I just said it without thinking. Except zakat. Ahsant, my dear brother. Except why? Because the hadith says لأنه وضعه في غير موضعه وإنما موضعه أهل الولاية. Because zakat only goes to the people of wilayah, and he gave his zakat to someone who does not have wilayah. So he will only have to repeat his zakat. All of the rest of his a'mal, his prayers, his fasting, although he broke his fast before Maghrib, sahih. Hajj, sahih. His salah, sahih. Although he prayed Maghrib before the time, sahih. Khalas. This is a specific hadith. A third time, my dear brothers and sisters, I kindly ask you, with 3 loud salawat, this time try to pull forward as much as you can. Please pull forward.
Keep moving, please.
Pull forward, please. There's a lot of room. There's a lot of room here. Please pull forward.
Keep moving, everybody. Thank you.
This was the fourth stage. After Aql, Hadith, jurisprudential principles, the mujtahid looks for a hadith. Now, this process is not easy. First, he has to be able to understand the hadith carefully, examine the hadith carefully. Is it a general hadith? Is it a specific hadith? Examine the hadith very carefully and try to understand it. This is one. Number 2, he has to examine what? The chain of narrators of the hadith, the sanad. Is it reliable? Is it not reliable? All the people, all the members of the chain, are they reliable or not reliable? That means that the mujtahid has to have studied ilm al-rijal, the science of the biographies of the transmitters and narrators. And also, this hadith is in which source? If it's in the 4 sources, Al-Kafi, Tahdib, Al-Tahdib, Al-Istibsar, Mala'h al-Faqih, he may rely. Otherwise, he has to be very careful on which source he's relying on. A lot of our dear brothers and sisters today, they come and say, Sayyid, I found a hadith that says this, I found a hadith that says that. Where did you get this hadith from? Which source? It's not that you can rely on just any source. There are specific sources that we may rely on. Also, does this hadith have a contradictory hadith opposing it? We have some narrations that oppose each other. One narration says this, another narration says something completely contradictory. Here, the mujtahid has to know how to solve the contradiction between these narrations. Is there a way to solve the contradiction? Or he has to choose. For example, some of our ulama in usul al-fiqh, they reach the conclusion that we accept the hadith when 2 ahadith conflict. We choose the hadith that is compatible with the Holy Quran, and we reject the one that is not compatible with the Holy Quran. Or we choose the hadith that goes against our Sunni brothers and sisters. Why? Because most likely the Imam was in the state of taqiyyah when he issued this hadith. While the other hadith, it conflicts with this because the Imam was in the state of taqiyyah. He was practicing taqiyyah. This is not a simple process. This is a very complicated process for a mujtahid to sit and discern. Does this hadith, is there an opposing hadith? Why are they opposing? Can we fix the problem? And then if we had to pick and choose, which one do we choose? Which one do we leave behind? And this is an entire science of its own in Usul al-Fiqh. In Usul al-Fiqh, there's a chapter called Bab al-Ta'arud. The chapter on conflicting ahadith. Conflicting ahadith. Sayyid Sistani Hafidhullah has lectured on Bab al-Ta'arud, and his lectures were written in a book. It's 800 pages long. 800 pages long. Just on trying to understand when two narrations conflict, which one do we choose? It's not something simple. It's not something for the ordinary person to do. Fifth step is that when we don't find a hadith, sometimes Aql has nothing to say, Quran has nothing to say, there's no qa'ida fiqhiyya and there's no hadith. Then what do? Sometimes there's rational practice, seerah uqala'iyya. What do I mean by this? For example, taqleed. Taqleed, the Quran alludes to taqleed. فَلْيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُم إِذَا رَجَعُوا عَلَيْهِ. Some say, no, this verse is not very clear on taqleed. For example, Sayyid Sistani, he says this verse is not very clear on taqleed. What about narrations? Narrations, some might be weak, some might have a weak chain of narrators. Does that mean we don't have any proof on taqleed? No, we do. Seerah uqala'iyya. Rational practice. What does that mean? We see all the uqala, all the rational people in the world, they refer to the experts in every field. In medicine, they refer to the experts. In law, they refer to the experts. In engineering, they refer to the experts. If you're, for example, an accountant, you're not going to become a doctor and an engineer and a lawyer. If you have a legal issue, you'll see a lawyer. If you have a medical issue, you'll see a doctor. If you have an accounting issue, you'll see an accountant. You refer to the experts. When it comes to faith and religion, it's the same. We refer to the experts. Who are the experts? Mujtahideen, the fuqaha. This is called rational practice, seerah uqala'iyya. This seerah uqala'iyya, the imams, they saw rational people, they referred to the experts, and they did not say no. That means the imams approved of this rational practice. That means they approved of taqleed in faith and religion, because it's a rational practice. And hence, our ulama, they say that taqleed is wajib. The number one proof is this rational practice, seerah uqala'iyya. The ahadith and verses, they come second. But the number one proof and evidence is seerah uqala'iyya. This is one. Let's say there's no seerah uqala'iyya, there's no rational practice. Is there any other proof that we may use in the process of ijtihad? Yes. There's something called the practice of the religious community. Sometimes the issue at matter, there's no hadith, there's no verse, there's no rational practice, there's no qa'ida fiqhiyya. But it's the practice of the religious community. Let me give you an example. Shaving one's beard. Is it halal or is it haram? Our ulama say as a necessary precaution, ihtiyat wujubi, do not shave your beards. And today I also tell the brothers who shave their beards, as a necessary precaution, do not shave your beards. And you'll look nicer too. And you'll save money on the barber as well. Here, we have some narrations. We have some narrations on shaving, not shaving one's beard. But some of these narrations are weak. And it's not. Some are accepted, some are not accepted. For example, there's a hadith that Ayatollah Khoi accepted that you may shave the sides, but don't shave the front goatee. And that was the fatwa of Ayatollah Khoi, that you may have a goatee. Sayyid Sistani said you have to have the full beard. Why? Based on the practice of the religious community. What does that mean? It means that the religious community, all religious men in our generation, and the previous generation, and the previous generation, they all had what? Beards. They did not shave. Religious men in the community, they don't shave unless there's a very, very good excuse. There's an absolute, there's a justification. For example, you're harmed, or you're in the military. For example, you need a very good excuse. Otherwise, the religious men in the community don't shave their beards. And this practice of the religious community, it's not just in this generation, but the generation before, and the generation before, and the generation before, all the way till whom? The Imam. This means that this law was given handed down to us from the Imam. This is called Sira Mutasharra'iyya. And this is a proof and evidence used in fiqh to issue certain fatwas, specifically on the law of not shaving your beard. There's another called al-ijma', consensus. Some ulama, not all, they accept ijma' as an authority, as a dalil, as proof and evidence. For example, can a woman become a marji'? The Quran doesn't discuss this, hadith doesn't discuss this. But today some ulama say no, she can't. Why? Because there's a consensus amongst our ulama. From the time of Shaykh al-Tusi and al-Mufid before him up until today, our ulama, they say that one of the criteria in a marji' is that he has to be a man, he has to be male. There's an ijma', and hence ijma' is binding, it carries authority. The ijma' of the ummah, the ijma' of all of our ulama, there's no disagreement in this matter, but this has to carry some weight. This was the fifth step. The sixth step, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And the sixth step, we don't find anything, not in rational practice, not in the practice of the religious community, and not in ijma'. Here, the mujtahid goes to procedural principles. Al-usul al-amaliyya. Procedural principles, but they're just it's a procedure that a mujtahid has to follow. It's not a hadith that tells him this is the fatwa. No, it's simply a procedure that he has to follow. Here there are four procedural principles known as al-usul al-amaliyya al-arba'a. Al-istishab, al-bara'a, al-ihtiyat, al-takhyir. Very quickly. Al-istishab says that if you were certain of something and you later doubted, build upon your what? Your yaqeen, your certainty. And do not invalidate your certainty with doubt. Let me give you an example. If you were certain that you had wudu, in the morning you performed wudu. Later on during the day you doubt whether you still have wudu or not. You say what? Insha'Allah, I have wudu. This is based upon istishab. The principle of istishab. Do not break your certainty with doubt. This is when you have certainty. If you don't have certainty. The second principle is bara'ah. Bara'ah says that if you were in doubt of whether something is wajib or not wajib, haram or not haram, bara'ah says that everything by default is lawful. It is not wajib and it is not haram. By default. Unless you have proof, unless there's a hadith, unless there's ijma', unless there's sirah uqala'iyya that tells us it is wajib or haram. Otherwise, everything by default is halal. Everything by default is tahir. Let me give you an example. You go to a restaurant in the morning and you ask for eggs. And then for a second you say, wait a second, I just requested eggs. What if they bake the eggs, they boil the eggs in the same pan that they boil what? Or bake? Bacon, for example. Should I ask? Need I ask or not? Asat al-Bara says what? You don't have to ask. You are not buying meat. You are buying eggs. There's a possibility that they are baking them in the same pan, but there's a possibility that they are not. Are you required to ask? No, you're not required to ask. Asat al-Bara says you're not required to ask. Can you ask? Yes, absolutely you can ask. If you want to be cautious, you may ask. But do you technically have to ask? No, you don't have to ask. The third procedural principle is al-ihtiyat. What is al-ihtiyat? Caution. This is when you know that there is an obligation, but you don't know, is it this or is it that? You have to perform them both. If someone missed a salah, but he doesn't know, was it dhuhr or was it asr? Or, no, let's change the example. If he knows he missed a salah, it's either fajr or maghrib. What does he do? He does them both. He has to do them both. If he has 2 pieces of clothing only, he doesn't own anything else other than 2 pieces of clothing, and one of them is najis, and it's now time to pray, what does he do? What does he do? He prays in them both. He prays once in this clothing, and then he prays again in another. This is called ihtiyat, caution. The 4th procedural principle is called at-takhir. You have an option. This is when you face 2 possibilities, either haram or wajib. Either haram or wajib. Let me give you an example. Sunday is either, for example, is either the last day of Ramadan or the first day of the first day of Shawwal. If it's the last day of Ramadan, it is wajib to fast. If it's the last day of Ramadan, it is wajib to fast. If it's the first day of Shawwal, it is haram to fast. And let's say you cannot travel. If you're able to travel, well, you're not in a dilemma. But if you cannot travel and you're facing a dilemma between halal and between wajib and haram, here, at-takhir says you have the option. Here you may fast, or you may break your fast. If you break your fast and it turns out to be Ramadan, you have to make it up. If you fasted and it turns out to be the day of Eid, you're fine. You're fine because you face 2 different options. I hope I have not lost you in this lecture, inshallah. And the idea was to walk you through the process of ijtihad and how a mujtahid arrives at a law. My dear brothers and sisters, let us not belittle this process. Let us not say, why can't all ulama just agree? You think it's like that? You just press a button and all the ulama agree all of a sudden? You see how difficult the process is? It depends on your understanding of the hadith, your understanding of the verse. Do you accept this rational practice? Do you accept the practice of the religious community? This is a very difficult process. We should not take it for granted. We should not belittle the job of the ulama and say, well, how did he arrive at this ridiculous conclusion? Ridiculous fatwa. Why do you call it ridiculous? This process was hard. It was difficult to arrive at. Let us not belittle this process. Before I get to the musibah, my dear brothers and sisters, 2 minutes. You have a Sadiq school here in this community. Let me tell you something. There are communities that would die to have an Islamic school. They would die to have an Islamic school. You have an Islamic school and you have not enrolled your children in the school? This is mind-boggling. You have a wonderful Islamic school. I've seen it. It's a state-of-the-art school. Amazing building with amazing teachers, with an amazing curriculum, an amazing administration. Why would you not enroll your children in this school? I've been told that the number of students here is very limited. It's a low number of students. This school is for you, my dear brothers and sisters. It's for your community. I know some brothers that moved from Patterson to Somerset just for the school. They moved. This is a gift from Allah Azza wa Jal. If you do not appreciate it, Allah will take it away from you. I'm telling you. Any gift that is given to us by Allah and we are ingrateful, we are not grateful, Allah will take it away. Today, when our children, my sons and daughters and your sons and daughters are facing so many dangers in school, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings us this beautiful school, the Imam Sadiq school, and we don't enroll our children. What's your excuse? What's your excuse? It's worth it. Commuting, it's worth it. The money, it's worth it. You're saving your children. This is an investment for your children. If you have not enrolled, please, today after the Majlis, go and enroll your children in a Sadiq school. This is for you. It is for your community. It is for the well-being of your children. You know, today was the day of Arba'in. Today, all the Zuwar in Karbala, they finished their ziyarah. They said their salams, they said their ziyarah. I wish that we were with them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had other plans for us. God knows that our hearts wanted to be in Karbala. We wanted to be in Karbala. Only Allah knows how much we wanted to be in Karbala on the day of Arba'een. You know, these Zawar, when they went to Karbala, there was food the whole way. When they rested, when they felt tired, they went and rested in a mawqif. But when the daughters of Imam Hussein were on their way to Karbala and they wanted to rest, they were beaten. These Zawar, when they felt hungry, there was plenty of food on the way. Not only was there plenty of food, people would kiss their hands, tell them, come eat at my mawqif, I beg you. Come eat at my mawqif. But the daughters of Imam Hussein could not say we are hungry. They could not say we are thirsty. Tomorrow, inshallah, when all of the Zawar, they come back from Karbala, they're greeted by their family members. If your wife went, you come and greet your wife. If your husband went, you meet your husband, your brothers, your sisters. They have someone waiting for them when they come back from ziyarah. But when Zainab arrived to Medina, there was no one to greet her. She did not have any brothers to greet her. Zainab was going back to a Medina empty of Aba Abdullah, empty of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. There's no one to tell her, ziyarah maqboola inshallah. May Allah accept your ziyarah, you're welcome, come and sit and relax. Zainab went into Medina, there's no one to greet her. In fact, the hadith says that Abdullah ibn Ja'far, the husband of Sayyidah Zainab, when he heard the calling of Bishr ibn Hadlam and he came out and they discovered the caravan has returned to Medina, he came out and he started looking. He started looking for his wife Zainab amongst the women. A woman came and told him, Ya Abdullah. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum. He said, alaikum assalam. She said, you don't recognize me? I'm Zainab. You don't recognize your wife Zainab? Zainab had been changed. She changed. Zainab aged. Karbala aged Zainab. Ashura aged Zainab. Even her husband was not able to recognize her. أنا زينب اليحجون عني يا نسليت المصايب ما سلني. Imam Zain al-Abidin tells Bishr ibn Hadlam as they approach Medina, today the Zawar are coming back home. Zainab is also going back home. The caravan is going back home to Medina. Bishr ibn Hadlam says that Imam Zain al-Abidin told me, are you a poet? Do you know verses of poetry? I said, yes, my master. He said, then go in Medina and start mourning my father, Aba Abdullah. Bishr enters Medina and he says, Ya Ahl-e Yathrib, la muqama lakum biha. Oh, the people of Yathrib, you can no longer stay in Yathrib. Why? What has happened? What is the commotion? He said, let's meet at the grave of Rasulullah and I will give you the news. When they all gathered at the grave of Rasulullah, he said, Ya Ahl-e Yathrib, la muqama lakum biha. Why? Why, Ya Bishr? قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدرار. Hussein has been killed. Hussein has been massacred. الجسم منه مضرج في كربلاء. His body is laying in Karbala. But you ask me about the head. والرأس منه على القناة يدار. As for his head, it's being paraded from city to city. There's not a city that did not get to see the head of Aba Abdullah. All the women and children, all the men, they come out to greet their loved ones, to welcome them back home, except Zainab did not have anyone. Bishr says that I saw the women come out to ask about their loved ones. I saw a woman carrying a child. Her face is glowing with light. She came. I looked and I recognized her. It was al-Baneen. She said, Ya Bishr, I'm here to ask you about my son Hussein. I said, Subhanallah, this mother has lost 4 of her sons, but she doesn't ask about them. She asks about Hussein. How am I going to tell her? So I said, Ya al-Baneen, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك Abdullah. I offer my condolences on the loss of your son Abdullah. She said, Fida'an lil-Hussein. May he be a sacrifice for my son Hussein. Tell me about Hussein. He said, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك Ja'far. عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك عثمان. She said, are you deaf? I'm telling you, tell me about Hussein. All of these children are a sacrifice for my son Hussein. He said, عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك أبي الفضل العباس. She told him, you are breaking my heart. I did not ask about Abbas. Tell me about my son Hussein. عظم الله لك الأجر بولدك الحسين. When he drops the child, who was the son of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, she sits on the ground and she starts hitting her head. Wa walada, wa Husayna. Zainab alayhi salam is back home. She's back home. She tells the woman not to allow anyone to enter. We are in the state of mourning. As Zainab and Bani Hashim are in mourning, they heard knocking at the door. They told whoever's at the door, you cannot come in. Zainab is in mourning. Zainab said, no, let her come in. She is a part of us. She is mourning with us. Al-Banin entered upon Zainab and she said, wa waladah, wa Husayna. Zainab returned the cry. She said, wa akha, wa Abbasa. Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein.